thank you so much, everybody who's been able to attend this afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you. And hopefully you're here to find out a bit more about how you can make an impact with your organisation's social media. If you've got any questions for me as you go, if you're with a specific organisation, let me know who you're with, and that will just help frame things a little bit. It'd be great to know where you're contacting us from. So bear with me while I do a little screen share. Here we are. Hopefully everybody can see that nice and clearly. Can everybody see that okay? Everybody hear me okay? All good? Yeah, fantastic. So here we are, social media. Incredibly important, obviously I would say that, but let's see if we can help support you in what you're doing or encourage you to get going if you're not doing it yet. So, have a look. So today what we're going to look at is what social media is and what it's not, why your organisation should be using social media, who you're talking to. We're going to have a think about your audience. It's really, really important to have an audience in mind when you're using social media rather than just kind of talking into the void. So we'll have a little chat around that and we'll do a personas exercise so we can be a bit more specific about our audience and have a really good think about who it is we're trying to communicate with. We're going to have a look at, I'm an ex-journalist, so I love this sort of thing. We're going to have a look at the journalist's 5 W's and an H, which are key to kind of getting your social media absolutely on point. We'll take a few questions at that point, and then we'll have a look at workflow, what can be achieved in half an hour a week, an hour a week, 2 hours a week, and kind of start to tailor things a little bit, because I know that you guys are really, really busy. And you know, time is absolutely a critical resource, so we'll see what we can do in the smallest amount of time possible, and we'll look at some tools to help you up your social media game as well, and some examples of great social media used by some of Rose's wonderful grantees. So this is me. I'm Rachel Millichip Media. I spent about 20 years as a broadcast journalist, mainly for ITM, and then flipped into social media, retrained, and I now provide social media strategies and consultation, some management for clients, principally within the women's sector. So these are people that I've worked with now, or I have worked with in the past. So Fawcett, Rosa, 50/50 Parliament, and I've also got some arts and culture clients as well. That's me. What we're going to talk about today is mainly Twitter. There's a really good reason for this. Twitter works incredibly well for charities, and it really is most charities' platform of choice. And we'll talk a bit more about why that is as we go, but just to kind of give you a sense of the direction that will be coming from it, will mainly be Twitter. These are some words that you're going to hear throughout today's session. So just to kind of get you down with the lingo before we get started. So reach is about the number of people you're reaching with your social media, unsurprisingly. Engagement is likes, shares, comments, retweets, like people actively engaging with the content that you're posting. Content is what you're posting, that's the stuff that you're putting out there. Your audience are the people that you're talking to. Impressions, this is a bit of a funny one and it's a bit analytic-y, but it's quite useful to have an idea of it. It's basically the number of times a set of eyeballs land on your content. And for a social media manager, it's often the main metric that we track because it really shows how much impact your posting is having. If you've got several thousand impressions, you know you're doing the right thing. And scheduling, most of our social media posting, we do it live. So we do it on the day, in the moment. But sometimes if you want to get really organised, you can use a scheduler and that will post your content at a later date. And those are things like Buffer and Hootsuite. You might have heard of some of those. Content tags. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So what does effective social media communication look like? It's the difference between this very lovely but very shouty lady with a megaphone who is blasting out from her soapbox whatever it is she wants to say fairly indiscriminately without listening to anybody, and this. which is a conversation. It's about listening. It's about being sociable. It's about taking part in a sociable conversation. It's not called social media for nothing. So the kind of thinking behind it is, if you arrive at a networking event and you see somebody standing in the corner that's just kind of talking about themselves or trying to sell things, you're not going to gravitate towards them. The people that you're going to gravitate towards are the people that are warm and chatty, who are interested in what you've got to say, who are listening. And that's the kind of person that you want to be on your social media. Rather than just pushing out messages, you want to make sure that you're listening and responding to what you're getting back. So that's just a kind of an idea of best social media practice, really. I'm really interested to know how important you think it is for your organisation to have a social media presence. So hopefully we're just going to do a quick poll, just so we can get an idea of if you think it's important. And it'd be really, really interesting to see whether you think it's very important for your organisation, important, not sure, or not so important for you. So give it, oh, blimey, okay. We're coming up with some pretty strong results there. Yeah, interesting, really interesting. So I could pretty safely say that's almost everybody. 9 in 10 people, 90% of our audience today think that social media is really important. 10% think it's important, and there's a couple of people who aren't so sure, and hopefully we can guide you through why it really is important to be out there and getting it right. So thank you so much for taking part in that. It's very, very useful to get a gauge from you, and that's quite a strong result, actually. That's a pretty strong, very important, stronger than I was expecting, to be honest. So thank you for that. Interesting. Okay. So I'm just waiting for my slides. There's a slight delay there. So here we are at our lovely journalists, 5 Ws and an H. So we're going to look at why you need to be using social media, who you're talking to, what you're sharing, when you're sharing it, where are you sharing it, and how you can use social media to raise the profile of your organisation. So let's start with the why. Why should your organisation be using social media? Well, let's have a look at some massive, massive numbers. The numbers really are pretty gobsmacking. According to Smart Insights, well over half the world's population accesses social media one way or another. I mean, that is absolutely vast. That means you have a potential audience of more than 4.5 billion people if you're using social media. I wish we could access all those people that easily, but it is an absolutely astonishing number worldwide. So if we start to break that down a little bit, Facebook is the biggest platform of the lot. And in some countries, Facebook more or less is the internet. That's kind of what people use, or Meta, as we should be calling it now, really. It doesn't mean it's the right platform for us here in the UK, for a small or medium-sized charity, but it's just to give you like the overall picture. Facebook's huge. Instagram, also huge. We're looking at 1.4 billion users for Instagram. LinkedIn, 810 million. Obviously, LinkedIn is much more targeted. And Twitter, we've got around 400 million Twitter users. So social media is the place to be. It is really important. You know, we live in a digital age, whether we like it or not, and some of us are more comfortable with that than others. But it is just the way things are. We live in a digital age. Social media is really super cost effective. You're not going to have to pay for it unless you're using paid for advertising. So you're missing a trick if you're not kind of making the best use of it. And ease of use. We've all got a smartphone. We can all access social media. It's right there, literally in our hands, in our bags, in our pockets. So it's easy to use. So who? Well, this is where we come on to audience. And this is what I was hinting at earlier. For your social media communication to be effective, it's really important to keep in mind who we're talking to and why we're talking to them. And instead of just being that person with the megaphone kind of shouting out into the void, we need to start to develop a clear picture of who it is we're communicating with, because we can't work out how to frame what we want to say or be clear about what we want to say unless we know who we're trying to say it to. So I'm going to see if you'd like to take part in a quick exercise here. This is a persona exercise, and persona is a bit of a sort of marketing-y word, which makes me flinch slightly. But it's something that anyone who's had any involvement with marketing will be familiar with. It's basically when you build a person, you get to build your own person. And the reason that we do this is you're going to feel much clearer about your social media communication if you have that clear pinpoint of who it is you're trying to talk to. So the thing to do is actually build a literal person in your head. So give her a name, an age, an occupation, an interest, and think about what media she might be using. Is she listening to Radio 4? Is she mainly watching the news on the telly? Is she reading trade mags? What interests her and how is she communicating? What social media does she use? So have a bit of a think about it, and maybe I'll leave you kind of a couple of minutes to pop a few answers into the chat. So we're looking for your audience members' name, age, occupation, interests, and what media do they use. And you can think of somebody you know, if that helps. If there's somebody that you know would be interested in what your organisation has to say, we can use them as a base. I put together one, where is she? Mina, here we are. So this was a persona that I built for a charity. And it's just a quick sketch, and I'll tell you about her while you're having a think about personas and starting to think about putting together a persona that fits with your organisation. So this is just an example. So Mina is a 43-year-old leader of a small charity based in Warrington. She's married. She's got 2 children, aged 7 and 9, and you can go to town on this. You can give it as much detail or as little detail as you like. Mina's a passionate feminist. She's got a degree in social sciences, and she's a really strong advocate for the rights of women and girls. The organisation that she heads up provides a space for Black and minoritized women and girls where they can meet and access support and information. And this means that Mina is often working with women who are vulnerable, who may have experienced abuse. So Mina has a lot on her hands. She has a lot to think about. Her charities run on a shoestring, and it struggles with long-term strategic planning, and many of the people involved are volunteers. Mina reads The Guardian online and uses Twitter to post about her charity, listens to podcasts about the sector. So that kind of gives you an idea. That's somebody that I've invented based on kind of fragments of real life stuff. And as a social media manager, I would build several different personas for each organisation that I work with. It's just an idea for you to have kind of 1 or 2 people in mind. And I don't know, I can't see the answers to, I can't see the chat there. There's one in the chat. Okay, let's have a wee look. Okay, let's have a look. Here we go, fantastic. So, Mariam, early 30s, teacher, interested in food, socialising, travel, cats and health. Media uses Instagram, YouTube mainly. I'm completely sold on Mariam. Like, she is completely alive for me there. That is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, well done. That's exactly what we're looking for. And I'd advise like anyone else to kind of have a go. Here we go. So Laura's giving us Sarah. Sarah's 50. She's a part-time casual worker, interested in family and friends, Instagram and Facebook. We've got another, I think Mariam's Facebook. Yeah, we've got an Instagram. We've got another Instagram person who's interesting. Khalida, 30s. She's an at-home mum. She likes meeting new people and improving her English. Excellent. And she uses WhatsApp That's a really interesting one. That's a really good one to bring up because everybody's on WhatsApp. Everybody needs to be au fait with WhatsApp. Fantastic. Well, maybe we'll see just if we've got one more. Here we go. Okay. So here's somebody we're trying to reach. So Alice is 15 years old. So this is interesting. This is completely different and really valid. And this is one of the reasons why these exercises are so useful, because Alice would be one of a suite of personas, I think. So Alice is 15 years old. She's in school, interested in gaming and dogs. She mainly uses TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube. Which probably none of us use on a regular basis, but definitely was what the 15-year-olds are all about. So that makes perfect sense. Let's just have a quick look at Norma finally. I love these. You're doing brilliantly. They're really good fun. Norma, 65. Norma's still working. She likes reading, quizzes and crosswords, and she only uses Facebook, which would be very unsurprising for somebody in Norma's demographic, so definitely worth thinking about. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do that, and I would definitely say, like, stick with it. Maybe make a note of these, and whatever you've kind of jotted down, make a note of it and have a think about it and take it away with you. And when you are getting started with your social media posting, just have this person in mind, like almost like she's kind of sitting next to you. You've got Norma sitting next to you and you want to have a chat with Norma, you want to get something across to her, and just think about how you would frame that when you're talking with her. It's really important. Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking part in that. That was really good fun. I'm just going to hang around now for my next slide. Where are we? There we go. Okay. So we're going to move on to our next W, which is our what. Not quite as exciting, but really important, if not more important, really. What we're posting. Because it's all very well saying, yeah, we're doing social media, we're connecting with people, but how? What is it that we're actually sharing with people? There's loads of stuff you can share, and it may well be more than you think. So these are the three main areas of content. So the first one is created content. And I think this is what people tend to think about when they think about social media posting, and what sometimes people worry about a bit, because they think, I haven't got enough of it. I can only take so many photos or do so many like videos of my dog or whatever before I run out of creative content. But actually, there's heaps of stuff you can do. If you're working in an organization, you could think about appreciating that there may well be privacy issues with your clients, which you might need to work around. But obviously photos, but you could do behind the scenes photos, a day in the life of the office. What's our CEO been up to today? What are our volunteers doing? Are we packing boxes? Are we sending out mailings? Are we having an event? Are we preparing for an event? You know, look around the office. There's lots of kind of opportunities for photo material. We've all got our phones with us. The more pictures you can take, the easier life is going to be for you in terms of creative content. So snap off pictures left, right, and centre. Don't hold back. If you see something interesting in the office, grab it. If you see something that you think is relevant to your audience when you're out and about, grab it. And you can keep it in like a bank of pictures, use it later. Ditto videos. All of the social media algorithms love a video. So like little videos, few seconds, quick talking head, whatever you can knock off nice and quickly on your phone. Doesn't need to be like Spielberg directed. Keep it simple. Video, absolutely brilliant. Written word, micro blogs, threads are great on Twitter, which is where you post and then you can post another post underneath that one connected to it, as long as it makes sense in its own right, but it means you can do slightly longer form written words. So anything you want to say that's written. And graphics, there are some really simple to use, intuitive graphic generating apps out there, which I'll talk to you about later. But some of them are just genius and just so smooth to use that anyone can create graphics. Like if you've never done it before, don't be scared, it's a piece of cake. And there's brilliant tutorials in those apps as well. So that's created content, but that's only part of the story. So then you've got curated content, which is just a posh way. It's like stuff you found, stuff that interests you, things you've seen, a brilliant news article, a thing you've heard on the radio, like a little clip you've seen somewhere, blogs, news reports, web pages, anything that you've seen on anyone else's website, anything that's caught your eye, a news article, a magazine article, a BBC Sounds, something you've heard on the radio and then they've stuck it on BBC Sounds and you can post a link to that you think is relevant, or maybe somebody from your organisation has appeared in a local newspaper article, or your volunteers have. It's anything that is kind of relevant. And that might be geographically relevant to wherever you are. It might be in terms of the work you're doing. It might be stuff relating to people you work with. Anything that you think is of interest to your audience that's caught your eye. And have a look at what other charities are posting, larger and smaller, and just keep your eye out. But just keep your eye out with kind of one eye on social media and thinking, oh, that would be good to share. My audience would like that. Same with shared content, but it's even easier. So on Twitter, like obviously the brilliant thing about Twitter is as soon as you see something you like, you can just retweet it. Like it literally is one touch of a button. It couldn't be easier. So if you've got a good, strong Twitter feed and you pop into it every day and find something that's relevant to you, and it could be something posted by Rosa, it could be something posted by other organisations you work with, or something that's going on locally from your local council, or a new bit of government policy, whatever it is, content of interest that you can share. So that's just a quick look at the kind of stuff that you can get out there. I'll go through this fairly quickly because it's a bit dry, but this is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for the content sweet spot. And this is just, again, to emphasize the importance of thinking about your audience. So over here with the yellow circle, you've got your organization's interests and motivations, which are likely to be work supporting women and girls, fundraising, events, recruitment, policy impacting women and girls. And then over here, you've got your audience values, their interests and their motivations. I mean, it depends very much on what your persona, this needs to fit with the person that you've built. But in very general terms, let's say, for example, general news issues, policy affecting women and girls, feminism, fundraising, climate, environmental issues, that's very general. And then we're looking for this lovely sweet spot where these two areas of interest overlap. So what interests your audience and what interests you? And that's what you need to be talking about in terms of your content on social media. It's worth having a little think about your tone of voice. So how do you want to come across? And how do you want to be heard? How do you want to be seen? As a very kind of basic level, definitely clear, accessible, jargon-free, acronym-free. Again, as a crusty old journo, I hate acronyms because people who work within certain sectors assume that everybody knows what these acronyms stand for. But if somebody else comes across your feed who's from outside the sector or not au fait with your organisation, it won't mean diddly squat to them. So avoid the acronyms if you can. And the right balance between formal and friendly. We don't want everything liberally sprinkled with the craziest, naffest emojis going. But the odd ones are all right, just to kind of keep the tone up. And it doesn't all have to be super dry and super serious. Social media moves quickly and you can afford to take a bit of a light touch sometimes. So where are we posting all this amazing content that we're now starting to think about gathering together? Well, as you've gathered, I'm a big believer in Twitter for charities. It's just where charities tend to live. It's really easy for sharing, much easier than Instagram, for example. You don't need the visuals that you need on Instagram. Instagram is fantastic, and there are plenty of organisations that lead with Instagram. You probably need to be quite visually minded if you're using Instagram. So you're looking at more photographic content, and more graphics and more kind of created content. Twitter's great for sharing, and it's where the sector just tends to be. And it's also really good for growth. You can grow an audience on Twitter. Facebook, however, Really quite difficult to grow on Facebook without paid for advertising. So Facebook is great for lots of reasons and in lots of ways. And certainly, as somebody mentioned with their 65-year-old persona, there's a demographic that lives on Facebook. So it does depend who you're trying to reach. But it's difficult to grow on Facebook without putting your hand in your pocket and shelling out for Facebook ads. And Facebook ads is quite tricky, and you may well need to hire a specialist to do them for you. Great if you can do all those things, then your reach is likely to be pretty good. But if you're a small organisation with a low budget and tight for time, Twitter is going to be a lot easier for you. If you are using Facebook, go for building groups because they tend to be scooped into people's feeds much more. The algorithm prefers groups. Lots of video as well, like most social media. Same with Instagram. If you want to make an impact on Instagram, you're thinking much more about stories and reels. At some point, grid posts won't even be a thing anymore, I don't think. And there's certainly changes coming currently to the Instagram grid. So again, it's that ephemeral, speedy content that does better. LinkedIn, I actually love LinkedIn, not least because you can grow LinkedIn really quickly. So definitely don't dismiss LinkedIn, and you can post a lot of the same content that you'd be posting on Twitter on LinkedIn. So if you found an interesting news article, you can post that and share it with your audience, because it's going to be a similar sort of audience, just with a slightly more sort of worky edge. It's a bit more of an office chat rather than a, you know, chat with your mates in the street sort of chat. So it's a little bit more officey, but there'll be people there who will be really interested in what you have to say. And if you can manage to post regularly on LinkedIn, you will find you grow your audience fairly quickly. And that's what we want. We want a bigger audience because the messages that we're trying to get out there, we want to get them to as many people as possible, obviously. So when are we posting all this amazing content? The main thing is, and you're going to hear me banging on about this, is consistently is the main thing. So you are better off posting twice a week, every week, rather than 10 posts next Tuesday and nothing until Christmas. If you can find a way to post consistently, you will see growth on your accounts. You will see your accounts gaining followers, and you will see your message becoming amplified more quickly. So consistency is more essential than anything. Like regularly is really, really important. Weekdays, particularly in our sector, weekdays are great, which probably suits most of us. Mornings, really good. So kind of pre-school run, before people go off to work. So 8 o'clock-ish, you know, as people are having their breakfast, 7:30, 8 o'clock, whatever time works for you. If you've got 5 minutes, you know, while the kids are eating their cereal or what have you, just to pop into Twitter and see if there's something you can share. That's a really good time to do it. Mid to late morning, like sort of coffee break. If you think of if you work regular hours, which I appreciate not everybody does, some people work nights and all sorts of strange hours, but if you work regular hours, you're probably looking to take a break. 11s is, you know, like coffee and a bit of cake or a biscuit about 11 o'clock. That's a really good time to post on Twitter, because that's when people like get off their laptops and pick up their phones and have a look at their social media. So mid to late morning is great. So how are we going to do it? Be consistent. Now, there it is again. As I said, I was going to bang on about being consistent. That's the most important thing of all. But also we want to get noticed. Again, you know, we want to grow our audience. We want to get our message out to as many people as we possibly can. So hashtags and @mentions are really important. And don't bother with hashtag off to walk the dog this morning, lovely sunny day, might take a coffee with me, because it just doesn't mean anything. Those kind of fake hashtags are a bit of a waste of time. However, you know, hashtag volunteering, hashtag hiring, hashtag charity, you know, hashtag do good, or, you know, whatever it is that's going to have some impact in your sector You can have a look on Hashtagify and see what hashtags are working around the issues that you want to talk about. It's a bit limited, the free version, but it will give you a steer. So use your hashtags. Make sure you're sticking hashtags, at least one, into every post. And that's how you're going to get noticed. People search up hashtags, and it's the best way to join the conversation. And if you're being really smart, on any given day, you can see what's trending, and things like last week it was Volunteer Week, and Volunteer Week at one point was trending on Twitter. So if you posted for your organisation with a Volunteer Week hashtag, you would have got noticed, and you would have got noticed by people who hadn't necessarily seen you before. So it's really worth it. Stick a hashtag in. Ditto an @mention, a tag. If there's anyone whose attention you want to get, it's a bit like kind of sticking your hand up and saying, I'm over here, this is me. So you don't want to spam people and be mentioning them all the time, but it's definitely worth, if you want to, you know, wave at someone and get their attention, a tag is a great way of doing it. Keep your content high quality and of interest to your audience. You know, just check it and make sure it's doing what it should be doing. Let's just have a quick look and see if we've got any questions. Let me have a look in the chats. Have we got any questions so far? Anything? No? Okay. Does anybody have any questions on any of the W's sort of while we're here at this point? Very happy to take them. Otherwise, we can take questions at the end. Oh, Swifter. Okay. So if you do, either unmute yourself or, okay. I have covenant sessions to post 5 out of 7 days. Okay, interesting. 5 out of 7 days would be great. If you're managing 5 out of 7 days, you're knocking it out of the park. That's fantastic. I will come on to optimum posting levels a little bit later on in the session. 5 out of 7 days is great to aim for. Not everybody will have the time to do that. But yeah, definitely. If you can manage to post Monday to Friday, then you'll be doing a good job. What's that hashtag? Verify, please. So hashtags are ways to join conversations, basically. So when you put a hashtag on something, it becomes searchable on Twitter. So if you were interested in baking, you might go into Twitter and search hashtag baking, and then all of the posts that have that hashtag in them will come up. So that's why it's a great reason to use them, because it makes you much more searchable. So we will see if there's any more questions at the end, but we'll move on for now, as I'm aware the time's getting on. Hashtagify is the name of the hashtag site. So I'm just talking to my colleague Anna, who's just raising a question there. Okay. So let's move on for now. Come on, here we go. Time and workflow. Every time I open this slide, I think it looks like a glass of red wine. I don't know what that says about me. nothing very healthy, I suspect. So let's talk a little bit about time and workflow. And we were just talking there about posting and when we should be posting. So let's take a bit of a look at workflow and how we think we should be organising our social media posting. So some of you will be working on your own, which kind of streamlines the who's posting what issue, because you'll be doing it yourself. But if you're working as part of a team, it's a really good idea to be very clear about who is leading on social media. Otherwise, there's always an assumption that, oh, you know, somebody else is doing it, Janet's doing it, Bob's doing it, and actually no one's doing it. So if you're part of a team, it's worth getting together, having a chat about who's leading on it or how you're going to share the social media load out. If it is one person, everybody needs to be clear about who that person is, and everyone needs to accept that that is part of your workload. It's not just a kind of, you know, thing that takes 5 minutes on the side. You need to be very clear about getting that time ring-fenced so you can spend the time that you need to spend on your organisation's social media if you are responsible for it. If there's several of you within the organisation and several of you who have the potential to be posting on social media, you can divide that up between you. If it's, say, one person, so say there's 4 of you, one person does 1 week, one person does the next week, one person does the next week. What you don't want is lots of people posting at the same time, because then your content's going to crash into itself and no one's going to really know what's going on. It's all going to get disorganised. So be really clear about who is doing what and when they're doing it. A way to make that simpler is to have a shared calendar, like a bit like a communications calendar, and in that you could put in awareness days, events within your organisation, when you want to talk about the fact that you're looking for volunteers, or if there's a vacancy coming up, when you want to post that on social media. You can just have a really simple shared calendar marked up for social media, and then everyone can see it. And even bits of content can go in there. If there's an interesting article that you want to post later in the week, you can link to it in there. Ditto shared documents. I mean, this isn't going to be right for everybody, but some people will find this really helpful. I know when I'm collaborating with people, I find it incredibly helpful to have shared documents, because it means everybody can see the same thing. Everyone's on the same page. Some larger organisations, medium-sized organisations like Slack. WhatsApp, actually, somebody mentioned WhatsApp earlier. WhatsApp is great. Google Docs, I like Google Docs because you can easily share documents in there, SharePoint, Trello, whatever works for your organisation, but a single go-to place to store your social media stuff is great. So here's our ticking clock. Let's have a look at a sliding scale of time and see realistically what can be achieved, because it's no good. It's really tempting to be like, I can't post 7 days a week, 6 times a day. So then you kind of get yourself into a bit of a pickle and end up not posting at all. So set realistic goals. 1 or 2 posts a week, if that's what you've got the time to do, is absolutely fine. If you can set half an hour a week aside for your social media, remember that the key is to be consistent. So better to be consistently posting 1 or 2 posts a week than nothing, or a big chunk of posting just around a campaign and then nothing. So if you can get that consistency, even if it's just 1 post on a Monday morning, or whenever you're like hanging around at the school gates waiting for the kids, or you know, whatever it is that fits into your working day, like 1 or 2 posts a week is great. Much more important to just do it, get in there and do it. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to go viral, it doesn't have to be like the next big thing in global social media. Just a quick, simple post is great. And once you start getting them consistent, you will see that you'll build your audience. If you've got, say, 1 to 2 hours a week, at this point, you can start thinking about doing a little bit each day. And this is where your 5 posts a week that we had the question about can start to come into play if you've got the time to do it. So little bit each day. So just a post, a share, a retweet, an article, something about an upcoming event or a previous event, whatever it is, like just 1 post a day, whatever you can fit in, fantastic. And at this point, you can start thinking about having a little potter around your social media feed and going in and interacting with other people's content. And this is where you're going to start to grow your audience much more quickly if you're able to do this. We'll talk about that a bit more on the next one. Mix of content, as discussed. So 2 hours a week, you're really cooking on gas at this point. That is a generous amount of time to really show your social media accounts some love. So we're looking here at a wide range of content, some shared, some created, some found content. You can have a think about video. You can definitely look at 1 to 2 posts a day. Ideally, we're doing maybe 1 created post a day, couple of curated posts a day, and a couple of retweets. That's quite a lot. You might not achieve that even in 2 hours a week, but in an ideal world, that's roughly what we're looking for. But as long as you're doing something every day, then you're winning. if you've got this amount of time and you've had it assigned to you within your organisation, you could consider creating a really simple one-page social media strategy, which might look at aims and objectives, your personas, what platforms you're posting on and why and how frequently, what your content sources are, just something really simple. Have a look at your analytics. I'm going to come on to this in a second. Don't be scared. I love analytics. It's actually really good fun. Honestly, who knew? But it really is. Especially if you've got this amount of time to spend on your social media. And ditto Canva scheduling. With this amount of time, you can start to play a bit and up your game. Again, get in there and interact with people. Retweet, follow people of interest, mention people, comment on their posts. Once you start interacting with people, you're going to find that your audience grows much more quickly. We don't really like the whole kind of follow back game, but it is quite effective. And often if you follow somebody, they will follow you back. You don't want to end up with an account that's, following thousands and thousands of other people, but give them a like, comment on their posts, interact. Don't be scared. Like, nobody is judging anybody. Just get in there and have a play. Right, so I flicked onto this one a bit too quickly, but this is just in case you've never met your analytics. If you've got a Twitter account and you've never done this, now's the time. Honestly, it is really good fun. So you've got your menu here on the right-hand side. So if you go to more, the three dots, the drop down, find analytics and click on analytics. And then the first thing you'll get is a really nice graph across the top and a few notes about your top tweets. It's when you go to view all tweet activity that it gets really interesting, because then you get a full breakdown on every post you've done. How many people have seen it? How many people have liked it? Who's liked it? Who's commented on it? It'll give you like a top of the pops, top 10 of, tweets of the week. If you click on the top tweets button, and it gives you a really clear idea about how your content's working. And it's really important, because once you know what works and what people care about and what they're interacting with, you can just do more of that. Like, that is the key, really. It's that reflect and refine, think about what's working, and do more of that. So don't be scared of your analytics. Like, you can't break them. Go in there, press some buttons and have a look. So quick rundown through some social media tools, because I'm hoping to get onto some great best practice. I think we'll have time to get to that. Canva is the graphics creator that I've been talking about. I cannot recommend it highly enough. The basic version is free. You can upgrade by spending £10.99 a month to the pro version, which is just brilliant. I mean, it's amazing. It's really, really good. It's really good value for money. And it will allow you, there's templates in there. It will hold your hand through any graphics creation that you want to do. I know I sound like I'm advertising them, but I think it's such a great app. And it is free unless you use the paid for version. If you want some like stock pictures, library pictures, if you want to post a photograph, you want like, I don't know, like a picture of a cup of coffee or something, and you can't afford to take one, or you can't take one, or you can't find one, what have you. Unsplash is not bad at all for free, copyright-free photographs. And again, those two things, using them together, Unsplash, Canva. Canva actually has a really good bank of photographs itself, which you can use. In fact, sometimes it's better than Unsplash. Nappy.co is quite new and focuses on diversity, which sometimes can be sadly missing in stock pictures. So that's worth a look. It's not massive yet, but it's definitely worth a look for a more diverse range of people. I found it quite useful. Scheduling, if you've got to the point where you want to schedule some social media because you know that you're having an event on Thursday, you're not going to have time to tweet about it on Wednesday, but you want to post on Wednesday saying it's happening on Thursday, you can schedule it. So you can write the post on Monday, stick it in the scheduler, and it will go out on Wednesday. Buffer is super easy to use, free for one platform, and definitely worth a look, especially if you've got that 2 hours a week. to consider for your social media. Feedly, Google Alerts, these are places to help you find curated content. The best actually is Google Alerts. If you just Google Alerts, it'll take you to Google Alerts and you can set up an alert. So if you wanted to be told every time a news article dropped about Rosa, you can set up a Google Alert for Rosa. And every time Rosa appears in the news, Google will tell you the next morning when there's been a news article about Rosa. And you can then share that article, if that's what you want to share, with your audience. Super easy to use, super helpful. And the other thing to do is just Google, which sounds crazy, but actually is often really fruitful for social media content. So if ever you're stuck, just have a little Google and see what you can find that you think is relevant. I'm going to have a really quick look now. How are we doing for time? Okay, great. Should be fine then. I'm going to have a really quick look at some social media accounts that are doing great work from Rosa's grantees. This is one of my favourites. I love this one. Phoebe posts a lot of video of people participating in events. And it just looks really good fun. Like the videos are always great. There's always like people doing Zumba and stuff. It looks brilliant. So they've got loads of original creative material. They're really good at like taking photos, and whenever they've got an event on, got the bunting out, I think, in one of these pictures. Like they're great at taking pictures and sharing them. Interestingly, I mentioned earlier, some of you might have issues with the identity of some of your clients or volunteers. And in some of the Phoebe posting, they're quite clever at taking pictures of the backs of people's heads so they can't be identified, which is quite a neat way around that without it being too obvious. But you can't actually see people's faces. So if that's an issue, there is often a way around that. And you'll see in their posting here, I mean, they're nailing it. It's quite a small account. They've only got 800 followers, which obviously isn't the smallest, but you know, it's less than 1,000. But they've got a hashtag in there. So this was an event that happened during the Jubilee. So they've done hashtag Jubilee, which is a conversation. It was a big conversation on Twitter that lots and lots of people were joining. And by doing that, it means they would have popped up in all sorts of people's feeds who might not have heard them otherwise. Sounds like just joined us. Hi, whoever's there from Phoebe. I was just talking about how great you are. You've arrived at the perfect moment, literally. Yeah, I was just saying what a great job you're doing with your social media. And here they've got a hashtag mental health matters, which is a really smart hashtag to use. They've got a couple of little fun emojis, but they've not gone crazy. And yeah, it's just really, really nicely done. And they're posting pretty frequently. And I expect they're very busy people and very short of time, but they're doing a great job. So yeah, really good mixture, especially good example of video use in there. Well done, Phoebe. So here we've got Women for Refugee Women. This is a bigger account, much bigger account. So this account has 25,000 followers. And they're posting pretty frequently because obviously they're a larger organisation. But again, just to kind of discuss some of the content that they're using here, which is quite interesting. There's a screenshot of an online event here. I've done this loads of times. It's like really super quick, super easy. Like if you're in a video meeting and you know nobody minds if you share it, it's a great way to grab a picture and to show some faces from within the organisation or faces of the people that you're talking to. If you hashtag, if you mention them in the post, they're going to go ahead and share that post with their followers. And that's a great way to amplify what your organisation is saying. I think this one up here is a retweet and just an example of the sort of content that it might be suitable to retweet. And ditto this one, I think this was a quote tweet, which I haven't talked about very much actually, but they're a really, really useful way because it almost becomes created content, if you you're almost sort of borrowing someone else's content, amplifying them and amplifying yourself at the same time. And in here, they've said, we're united with tag Rights of Women, tag EVAW UK. So that will have come up in the notifications of both of those organisations, who may well then retweet the quote tweet. And they've also linked to a statement here. This is, for anyone that's not familiar with what this URL link is, this is a bit link. You can see it says bit.ly at the top there, and that's when an app has been used to shorten a very long URL. As you know, URLs, sometimes when you cut and paste them, they can be like 4 lines long, but they've used a link shorten there, and they've used a hashtag. I'm not familiar with that particular one, but it may well have been trending at the time. So that's an example of a much bigger account. And then we've got a kind of medium-sized one here, which is lovely Hull Sisters. Hull Sisters have got about 1,500 followers. And once again, you'll see here that they've done lots of the right things. So they have used hashtags, they have used tags, they've got the We Protest hashtag in there as well. Once again, they've tagged here. And I think we've got some original content down here, and they've tagged Volunteer Week, I was talking about that earlier, and this up here, EVA, EVAWG, it's unusual, normally it would be VAWG, but anyway. Yes, so as an example of good practice, all the right things. This is an original, I don't know if you can see this behind your boxes, it's tucked away behind one of the boxes, but this was a photo that I think may have appeared in a local newspaper, and this is people who work within the organisation, and obviously they've chosen to share that, which is great. So that's kind of a quick skim over some good practice on behalf of the Rosa grantees, and there's loads of organisations out there who are doing such a fantastic job already, and well done, because when you're busy it's hard to make time for this, and it's one of the things that can get pushed to one side. So it's great to see the organisations that are doing it so well. And for those of you that haven't dipped your toe in the water yet, don't be scared. It's quite difficult to do anything really bad and wrong. You can't break it. No one's broken social media yet. So get out there and give it a go. And I've just said here, as a sort of finishing thought to go back to where we started, that social media, it's not a media. It's a place to talk, and it's a place to engage, and it's a place to be social. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. So that is my presentation. Let's have a look and see if we've got any questions here. Okay. Let me see what we've got. Bear with me a second. Just having a wee look through. Where are we? You might have to point me to those. Yeah. Here we go. Yes, Orla. Hi, Orla. Do you know what the engagement was like for Spotify? Our podcast worth doing. I would probably have to put my hands up and say that I'm not a podcast expert, but on the face of it, I would say yes, because it's definitely a growing field. And once you've done your podcast, then you can share it on your social media. So you can regard it very much as social media content. So if you have the time to do it, and then the time to promote it, then yes, I would say if you're just doing it and it's just going to sit there, there might be other things you can do that would get you higher engagement. But if you're able to promote it as well, I run a women's community cycling hub. Oh, fabulous. Wow. What would be good hashtags? I would say, like, off the top of my head, probably sounds probably quite obvious. So things like cycling, bike, cycle community, biking, that sort of thing would all be pretty obvious. I would say have a look in Hashtagify, which is the one I mentioned earlier. As I say, it's not amazing, and you only get a few goes before you have to pay for it, but have a look in there and just see if there's anything else. But you can just do a little brainstorm session with hashtags, actually, and that I find that quite helpful. You know, you can just like literally like bike, trike, biking, cycling, cycle lanes, cycle campaign, you know, just write down everything you can think of and pick a couple of good strong ones. Okay. Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you, Hannah. Hannah says from NACCOM says charities can access Canva Pro for free. I did not know that, Hannah. That's really interesting. Charity discount for Canva. Yes, charity, yes, absolutely. That's really good to know. Hootsuite is good for scheduling too. Yes, some people love Hootsuite. In fact, it's probably one of the most commonly used schedulers. Let's see if we've got anything else. Reels. Reels talking to camera. Yes, Reels are obviously big, as you'll have noticed on Instagram and Facebook. I'm all for it. If you've got the time to do it and you're kind of video minded, yes, definitely go for it. And if Instagram is your platform of choice, Reels is the way to get in there and get heard. Wow, it's great to see all your organisations. Solace Women's Aid, the Movement Charity, amazing. My gosh, you people are doing amazing work. Rochdale Women's Welfare Association, Bromley and Croydon Women's Aid, wow, amazing. Rent Crisis. Let me see if there's any more. Wow. I have to say, I'm lost in admiration at the work you guys do. It's incredible. Okay, I think, have we taken most of our questions? I think we have.
I've got one, Rachel, if you can hear me. Sorry, it's Shagufta from Women on Wheels.
Hi.
Hello, sorry, I'll put my video on so you can actually see me. I'm a kind of one-woman band. We're a very small organisation. We're a startup. I say one-woman band. I've got a board. I've got some volunteers, but I'm kind of responsible for everything. So I'm doing the day-to-day running. I'm doing logistics. I'm doing networking, community engagement, funding applications, and social media.
My goodness, blimey, good for you.
And obviously we're only we only launched 1 month ago, and it's been incredibly successful so far, but social media is probably one of those things that falls to the wayside for me. So I guess my question is, and for me it feels like, I know you're saying like lots of pictures, lots of videos, and when we first started I took pictures of us doing lessons and pictures of us doing lead rides and posted a few of them, but obviously the people are going to change within them, but the pictures are going to be the same. And I feel like, that's the same thing over and over again. Surely people don't want to see or hear that. So what do you think?
I think you'd be surprised, actually. I think your audience, once you start to grow them, will want to see you on the road and what you're up to. So, you know, when you're taking those photos, you could maybe think about, so they don't all look the same. So it's not just like someone with a bike. You could think about maybe attaching a GoPro to a bike and getting a bit of video. You could take some close-up pictures of like hands on handlebars, of like the setup on the bike. You could take some pictures of somebody doing a bike repair, or in a slightly different environment or from a slightly different angle. If someone's got some new gloves that you want to, you know, that have caught your eye and you want to take a picture of them, or some new shoes or a new bit of kit, you can take a picture of that. As people, you know, as new people join, pictures of them. So, you know, go to town, like just think about those different angles, maybe get other people to take pictures for you if they're going to an interesting venue or location. So yeah, but don't worry about the fact it's going to be a load of pictures of bikes, because anyone who's following your account, that's what they'll be interested in, and that's what they'll want to see. And think about, you know, bike publications, who's doing what in cycling. Is there anything about cycling in the news? Cycle lanes, blue routes, cycle hubs, bike hire, Tour de France. I mean, literally, like anything cycle related will work as part of your content.
Okay, that second bit I'm quite good on because I've been in this industry for about 10 years. So I've already followed quite a lot of those, but it was just like our own. But that's really, really good actually. I never thought about that, like close-ups or new things or new kit. I mean, I've done some repair ones, but most of them have just been like from a certain angle. So I'm not a great photographer. So you're right. I need to get more help from. I do actually have a board member who's a really, really good photographer and she does delivery. So I might ask her to think of different angles and
Amazing.
get.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely capitalize on the skills that you've got. Like, yeah, get her to take some snaps for you all day long.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay. Any more for any more? Great. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for attending today. It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy to speak to you all. As I say, you're all incredibly inspiring, and I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to connect with you. So thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.